minimize this. So tonight is going to be a bit of a Q&A. I know that the world of junior tournaments can be very daunting. In 2012, when I moved across from the UK, I couldn't believe the level of tournament compared to what the kids were having in the UK. I basically felt like some of the US kids, especially the ones in Florida, were mini professionals. And some of the tours with the ranking points and systems, it really is crazy. But on a national scale, I've learned to really understand it. And Chris, on a national scale, unfortunately on a local scale, because I've only just moved to the Northeast, really understands it as he actually played in it himself.
About 30 years ago.
So there's a few little nuances that Chris knows. So I do want today to be an open forum, a Q&A. But I also want you to understand that myself and Chris, we put this guide together based on local knowledge, based on understanding the systems, but also based on a little bit of research and evidence and science, because every one of your children is different. Therefore, every single one of them is going to need something different regarding the tournament schedule. But one thing that they will need that's all the same is a parent's love and support, no matter what happens. So before we go into this, I really want to highlight maybe what some children that play organized sport think. And then when we plan the tournament schedule, I want everyone to understand that we have to do the tournament schedule in line with your child's goals and dreams, and also in line with their behaviors and what they want from the sport. But before we go into all that, I'm just going to play this video. I think it's a great way to kick this off.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I prefer that my parents, if I play bad, don't say anything. And if I play well, it doesn't really matter if they compliment me on how I play. I just I don't know, I prefer my parents to, not talk as much.
I can hear them like cheering me on, and I'm like thinking in my head, shut it, I'm trying to focus.
My mom yells in Spanish, like, go, go, go.
My mom just says, use the backboard. You should use the backboard. I get angry because it annoys me. I'm kind of embarrassed.
She tells me to get in the position that my coach told me not to get in. I'm like, well, no. And then she's like, get in your position. I'm like, no.
I get a little tense when I have a certain score to get, and she's like, you gotta get that whatever score. And I'm like, I don't like it when they try to push me even more, even though I'm trying really, really hard.
Coming from the coach's mouth is kind of better, I feel like, because your parents are there to support you and your coach is there to help you, you know?
You just start screaming, Valentina, run faster, make a basket. But I just start going slower every time when she says that.
The other people were like, wow, that mom is like really wanting her kid to win.
In my inside, you can't see it, but I'm inside saying, be quiet, be quiet. Sometimes I just look into space.
I try to listen to them and then do what they say to so they don't start yelling again.
I don't really want them to give me that much advice because then I forget it all.
Sometimes I get nervous
when they yell and nobody else is yelling.
Sometimes it can embarrass me.
Like a lot.
Wait. What's going on? We're just trying to do this, but you want us to try harder?
Well, I am.
I'm not going into a game not trying my hardest. That'd be like messed up.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Sometimes when they try to get the ball in basketball, you kind of think in your head that they're kind of like gonna push you and you're gonna fall and hurt yourself.
They don't need to like always be like telling me what to do like every minute of the game. They kind of just gotta let me play.
I love when you say like really nice. I got it, Mom.
I'd like to look back and I'd like to see you like smile or like give me a thumbs up.
Mom, I wish you would be a little bit quieter. Say like you play good and like you can get them next time.
When they smile and say like good job.
Mom and Dad, thank you for loving me.
I love
Be my supporter.
When I'm upset, my mom and dad cheer me up.
Sometimes I forget about all the work that they do for me.
Be my biggest fan.
We need a lot of love. I want you to know
I need big hugs.
I love the snacks that you bring me. It makes me happy when you always encourage me.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Please just be my mom and dad. Yep, that's it.
So one of the reasons that I want to show that is because you guys play a huge role. Tonight is about selecting the tournaments, but you guys also play a huge role in the environment that is created around these tournaments. And there are times when students will need to discuss their score and will need to maybe be given a nudge in the right direction. And there are times when they walk off the golf course that all they need to hear is something along the lines of, hey, do you want ice cream or do you want a burger? So my one piece of advice when it comes to tournament golf is I do think that parents should watch. When I have kids, if they want to play golf, I will go and watch. But when I look at that video and being in the Florida full-time academies, I've seen some of the craziest things that you could ever imagine. And all I think that should happen is if your child wants to talk about golf with you, just allow them to bring it up. And if they don't, allow us at KOHR to bring it up and we'll report back to you. And I'm just going to share my screen again one more time because I want to share an image that I can't find now because this isn't white. So I want to share this image. This is very, very, very important because KOHR Golf checks every single one of these types of pupil. We have a vast number of students at KOHR that are still only developing their interest in the game. For those players, many of them are here in Florida. For those players, it is about fun. Tournament golf has to be fun. The most critical thing I think I've ever heard from an expert is we have to develop participation in the sport before we develop a champion. So again, when we're scheduling these tournaments, if your child is a number one, is a beginner,
a lot younger than there.
It should literally only be about having fun. Then when a child makes a decision that they want to play golf at a higher level, that maybe college is something that they want to do, we have to shape fun and add a bit more intensity into practice. And with more intensity in practice, probably becomes more demanding tournaments. And with more demanding tournaments, probably comes playing less. So in this first stage, as many tournaments as they want to play, make friends, go for ice cream after, never ever talk about anything unless they bring it.
Don't need ice cream.
Sorry, I think someone might not be on mute. If everyone can just look. So then the second phase, if they decide that they really, really want to play at a higher level, and we see the effort in practice, and we see this intensity, and they're starting to develop some self-determination, then we still have to have fun. Everything has to be fun. Tiger Woods talks about this being fun. But tournament schedules going to become a bit more intense. So there's probably going to be a few less tournaments. And then we need the third level of participation. Once we've created that intensity, they're enjoying the game, they're going to play it for life. Training is intense. Tournaments are a little more selective. The coach's role, the parents' role, everyone's role just becomes a sounding board. And we're the guide. So the older students at KOHR, the people that are in college already, in their final year, going to go to college, we're just guides. They should be able to pick their own schedules. We should give them advice. They probably jump in the car, drive there themselves, clean the clubs, come in, and they'll tell you how they played, probably without even you guys having to ask. So I didn't share this in the tournament guide, but I wanted to share that first video, and I wanted to share this because this is at the heart of how we're training a lot of these students at KOHR. We're deciding if they only need guidance and they're almost the rounded golfer and person that we want them to be. We're deciding if they need to be pushed hard and there needs to be some intensity because they want to go to college, but they haven't got those habits yet. Or we're deciding if we just want to get them to love the game, buy into it, and participate. So now that we've covered that, I'm going to open up the guide that was sent out. And I'm going to roll through this, and I want this to be an open forum. So now that we've covered that first bit, which I think is vitally important, the parents' role and the coach's role within creating the tournament environment, let's look a little bit at the tournaments that we'll select. So did anyone read this and have any questions off the bat? If you do, come off mute, ask questions now, and I'll definitely be deferring to Chris. If there are no questions, or if you'd prefer to type your question in the chat, I'll read it out, that's fine. If there are no questions, I'll start to run through this. And even if you want to make it specific about your child, I'm sure there'll be some similarities that another parent listening to, they're in the similar phase or the similar level would learn from. So does anyone have any questions?
Ian, I'm sorry, I think I missed this. Did you email this separately, or how did we get this?
I emailed this. It wasn't branded. I don't believe when I emailed it. It was called Tournament Cheat Sheet. It was written by Chris. And
I can email it to you as well.
Okay, I remember seeing like one sheet that had like bullet points, but I just don't remember a whole booklet.
Yeah, so I think underneath the bullet points, there was just a blue box on the email, like click to download.
Okay,
Chris,
sorry, thank you.
Sorry.
After this, I will email all of this information out again. I'll email the videos. That first video, if you have any friends who have kids, please, I think that video is so valuable. Please share it. Feel free to share this with any, even outside of KOHR, with any parent whose kid plays golf or organized sports. So I'll get a nice email to you either this evening or tomorrow at some point.
So I emailed it to Robin and Patrick there. So if anyone else needs it, I can forward that along to you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
You're
Does
welcome.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions straight off the bat, like I said? No.
Well, yeah, I'm of the opinion for Nick to put him in any event, anytime we got time to take him, which could be 3, 4, or 5 tournaments a week. And I'm kind of thinking that maybe, 20, 25 tournaments a month might be too much.
So, a statement, more of a question. I agree with your statement. So look, Nick is gonna fall. Nick is gonna be a level 3 golfer.
Level 3?
Yeah. So if we look on the screen, Nick has.
Level 3. Okay. Yeah.
Nick is a high school team golfer with moderate to advanced tournament experience.
Okay.
So Nick wants to play in college, and myself and Chris would agree that Nick shows some of the behaviors and a level of skill that would give him the opportunity to play in college. So this is very important for every parent. This is very important for everything across the board. For a child that already has a certain level of skill, for a child that has a certain level of motivation and has a good opportunity to play golf, college golf, the primary focus is keeping them happy, keeping them motivated, avoiding physical and mental burnout. So Nick doesn't need volume where he's at. Nick needs motivation and to be selective and to not be playing tired or injured. So what we would do with Nick, Patrick, we would maybe look at Mass Junior Open. We would maybe look at the AJGA in Chicopee that's at the 4th of July. We would look at the Challenge Cups that actually earn you stars or qualify you for bigger events. Nick should be playing a more complex schedule against better players. And if Nick wants to play in a few more tournaments, the lower level tournaments like the New England PGA or some of the smaller hurricanes, he should be seeing them more as practice, where maybe he starts to take on shots that he's not quite comfortable with, but we're trying to prepare him to peak at the right times. Okay. Does that help?
Yeah.
And also look, if he's playing 25 tournaments, if he's playing 5 tournaments a week in the summer, he's going to miss out on coming to some core sessions. And I don't think a student should turn up to every single one in the summer, but I do believe that on course adds value. There's not one student at Core Golf that owns golf strategy yet. So being on the course with Coach Chris, with Coach Luke, people who've played at a high level and coached at a high level, learning to manage their way around a golf course is more important than playing in a tournament that he can probably win with his B game and not really getting any status. It's not really worth as much. So sometimes we have to take a little step back to evolve those skills.
Okay.
Now, the 25 tournaments a month, while that's excessive for anyone, but if your child is a level 1 golfer, new to tournament golf, or a level 2 golfer, beginner, moderate experience, as long as they're happy, having fun and injured, I do believe that volume is important there. So I just think, Patrick, that Nick's kind of graduated out of that from watching him at Core, but a lot of Core students haven't. So for the parents on this call that either completely new to tournament golf or a beginner with moderate experience, I do believe putting them in a good number of tournaments is great, because they'll make friends of similar age that they'll start to bump into on the circuit. and they'll gain experience. They'll start to deal with those first tee nerves. They'll get up to speed playing 18 holes. So there's lots of value there. Nick has probably learned all of that stuff already to a point.
Okay.
So Chris, do you have anything to add to those?
Yeah, and I to your point, I mean, I think every kid is different. I think when we were creating this, each individual is its own, topic here. And with the US kids and the NEPGA, a lot of those events are one-day events. The biggest thing is, I personally believe, and Ian and I have talked about this at length, is each kid should be excited to tee up in a tournament. So if they're showing up and they're like, I don't really want to play today, that wouldn't be great, because I think over the years, everyone has seen that's in this business, is we want to make sure that they're in it for the right reasons and they're not getting burnt out. So if the kids are excited to tee it up on the first tee, in those US kids and NEPGA events, while it's tournament golf, it's a little more relaxed, and it's really like a bunch of kids that are just getting used to playing tournament golf. Whereas when you start to move, later on in high school and looking into these AJG and bigger events, there's a lot of pressure that comes with these tournaments for the kids, and there's really kind of a certain level. You don't want to crowd the schedule too much. Would you agree with that, Ian?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we look, I think one of the things that we did nicely, I say we, I sat there while Chris explained all of this to me. Tours 1 to 4, they're more for the lower sort of level golfers and can accommodate what Chris said. So if we start to look at the tours 5 to 7, that's where it gets really complex. And it gets complex as well because someone just made a great point. Like, my child is kind of a 2.5. And yeah, there will be some people that flirt. So Graham is going to be one of those students that flirts a little bit with kind of having sort of 2 schedules, needing experience, but also has the potential to maybe play in a couple of qualifiers. But if we keep it simple, tour 1, Chris, you'd agree this is really the beginner's tour, right?
Yeah, I'd say more or less for the younger kids, or for someone who has some tournament experience and might be looking for just a competitive round before a big event.
And I do believe they limit scores at double par. Like yeah. So if your child has played very, very, very little tournament golf, this is going to be a great option for them. If we skip to the next page, this is, Chris, almost the same, you would say. The NEPGA is pretty much the same as US kids.
Yes, I would say a little bit more advanced though. And the difference would be the US kids. Obviously there are some really, really young divisions, but parents can caddy during those. NEPGA, it's going to be the kids on their own.
Awesome.
So, and what I would also make a point here is the NEPGA, not only the fees aren't too high, and they have a lot of events. A lot of them are one-day events, and there's quite a few at some really nice private courses. So when you kind of look through the schedule and you're building out a schedule, convenience, so you don't have to drive an hour and a half. There could be some events that are within 30 minutes, and also playing some different courses that, the kids might not have played and would really enjoy. So again, it's competitive, but the kids shouldn't feel too intimidated to tee it up in those events. It's a little more relaxed than, say, a Challenge Cup, or like a state tournament, like a mass golf tournament or a AJGA.
Yeah, so, and that's where we're going to now. So Tour 3 is the Hurricane Tour. Now, one of the downsides of the Hurricane Tour is a little bit more expensive. One of the upsides is if you do well, you can hang out with Tiger Woods or Will Smith or things like that as like a prize. So this is very, very nationally known tour. I do have the intention for all the kids that play Hurricane. There's a big end of year tournament in Orlando. I think it's around December the 3rd. My intention is to potentially book, make it a core trip, get a core uniform, take a number of coaches, do a practice round, have a real nice end of season experience for the students at the tour championship. Probably rent a 10 to 15 bedroom house on Celebration that has a water slide and arcade games inside. And I really want to end the year with something special for the kids. I think that's maybe been lacking in the past. So I know that this is an expensive tour, but potentially some of the kids like to play it, and some of the kids I hung out with them at the end of year tournament last year. So I know there's some kids that like to play in this, and ultimately this kind of flirts with, you can be a level 2 golfer, not that experienced, and play in a Hurricane, and there will be other players of that ability, but there will also be some stronger players in the field trying to accumulate AJGA stars. So this one is really where it starts to mix. So tours 1 and 2 are pretty much beginners. Tour 3, it starts to blur a bit, and you kind of can get a vibe for it by how many people signed up for the tournament last year. So if you look at a Hurricane and there was 15 or 17 people in the field, it's not that popular. It's a smaller one. It's probably a safer one for a less experienced golfer to play. If there was more people in the field in the previous year, if it was highly attended, you know that the kids want to play it because it's either a great course or there's something on the line. But most students at core can enter these with no real worries. Same for this one. Same for the Challenge Cup. Now, I believe, Chris, there's a couple of majors when it comes to the Challenge Cup. Is that correct?
Yes. So the Challenge Cup has been around even since I was a kid. And unfortunately, the website hasn't changed since I was a kid. But hopefully soon they will get on that. But even though the website and all that is a little outdated, the Challenge Cup does attract a lot of the top talent in New England. Many people on this Zoom, I'm sure, have kids, or if you're a player, you have played in these events. They're pretty well run, strong fields, and they do have qualifiers to some pretty big national tournaments, such as like the Optimist and the IMG Worlds in California. And there are even some events where you can get some points towards your AJGA. And if your child is on the younger end, I know that might sound like a different language, but you will, become more in tune with that. But it really is a good option for the kids to develop the experience. And I would say somewhat similar to Hurricane, but honestly, the fields are typically a little bit deeper, but they have lots of events, and it's mainly Mass, Rhode Island, Connecticut, with a few exceptions. But in my experiences, our kids have had some great success, and college coaches also will go to a lot of these events. So you can also get recruited, and they're great to play in conjunction with some of these bigger tours like the AJGA.
Susan asked, yeah, so I see you guys are typing. So we don't know the schedule yet is the direct answer. And yeah, Mark's right. By mid-March, we hope that the kind of crusty old website has been updated. You can use last year's. Chris showed me, he said, like, just use last year's to get a feel for the tournaments that I was going to attend. So if you look at last year's dates, it's not going to be realistically any different. It's kind of a rinse and repeat thing. But good question.
Yeah, and usually this time of year, I give Dave Adamonis a call to see if he knows when those dates are going to be released. But yes, like Mark said, right around that time. We also just had a question come in. Do you know which tournaments the core coaches will be attending? Ian,
I released that on email, the ones I'll be attending. Again, I couldn't be 100% accurate because Challenge Cup hasn't been fully released yet. But I'm generally going to be attending the tournament. I'll be at a number of Hurricanes because realistically any ability student can come to those. And that's actually starting in March. I'm going to attend a Hurricane in March, I believe I put on the schedule. And then there was a number of Challenge Cups, Mass Open qualifiers, 100%. I'm going to be there, and school willing and parents willing, I'm also willing to do a practice round with the students, no charge, take the students, teach them some core strategy. And I think the AJGA qualifier at Chicopee was on there. So my list has been done of where I'm going to go. And then it's a bit harder for the guys because they obviously give private lessons, but theirs will be released closer to the time of tournaments. But it's mainly going to be me with support from the other guys going and watching the students play. So when I put that email together, I'll post this branded guide in for everyone to look at, and I'll post exactly where I'm going to be. I think me and Chris, we went to the state championships and the school, some school matches as well last year. So don't just think of tournaments as an opportunity for us to view students play. We also attend high school matches. This is where it gets complex. Yes, Mark, do you want to, I see you put your hand, do you want to just come off mute and
Yeah, just had a quick question. Since we live in Rhode Island, the girls have only ever done Rhode Island state-run events. Because they're members of CORE, are they eligible for mass-run events? Like you mentioned, the ones that you're going to. Like I didn't know if they're eligible for, say, the Mass Women's Am or the Mass Junior Am.
That is, Chris, I got to defer.
Yeah, that's a
good question.
That's a good question. I can get a 100% answer on that, but I believe if someone's affiliated with a Massachusetts facility, that might change that. But I could definitely, we could look into that and get an answer for sure.
We're also forming a strong relationship with Mass Golf. We visited them a few times. We're gonna look at supporting the first tee, doing some podcasts with them. So I hope that connection, if it was something that you'd be interested in, Mark, I hope that might help as well. But let us get a definitive answer on that for you, and we'll send you, I'll give you a call or send you a text. Great question.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? Any questions? This is where it gets complex. So if your child is a beginner, relatively advanced, beginner, moderate tournament experience, they're really going to play high school golf or tours level or level 1 and 2 tours, which was US Kids, which was NEPGA, and then they can feel comfortable in some Hurricanes and some Challenge Cups. We're now getting to the tournaments that really the less experienced younger players probably won't be playing in, because these ones you have to qualify for. So you need to accumulate stars, you need to accumulate rankings, or you need to play one day before the tournament, post a score, and that will get you in the field. So realistically now, we're talking probably 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that have decided that they want to go to college and that are good players. I think generally, with the exception of maybe Graham and the exception of maybe Catherine, these tournaments are for experienced players only. There are a couple of students we have at KOHR that aren't that experienced but have shown high skill quite quickly. And we may, from time to time, want to put a student in these tournaments, even if they're not good enough. We want them to try and qualify so they can see the level that they want to play at. So again, we try to make it simple on this, and then we talk on here. If your child is 14, relatively inexperienced, but they're showing a decent level of skill and a decent level of motivation, and we don't think that dealing with some adversity would be too harmful for their development, we might make the exception and recommend one of these tournaments. But again, that's not necessarily, that's not a big thing. That's not going to happen to a wide number of people. There's information here on how you earn stars, how you qualify, etc., etc. The kids, honestly, your kids probably know as much as Chris and I on this. When they get to this level, they really understand this system. They really understand what it is that they're playing for. But again, there are times when we'll ask students, hey, even though you're not at this level, can you attend this tournament, because we want to see how you respond to playing a longer golf course or the adversity or the stress. So to sort of wrap up, and again, I'll send all of this by email. This has been recorded, but each of your children has a mentor. And towards the end of the winter program, every student will sit with the mentor. And the mentor will look at their tournament list that they plan on going to based on this meeting, based on little help from Google, I'm sure, based on what your child is learning. If everyone can formulate some form of list towards the end of the winter program, every child will sit with their mentor, and their mentor will look and give some guidance. Any student that is in the Level Up program has a mentor who's a coach, but also they're the students I'm taking, and they're the students I'm going to be spending more time with in some respects, because they're the most advanced. They've got the most demanding tournament schedules, and they need the most help away from core. Golf strategy, dealing with pressure, preparation, planning. So if any of your children are in the Level Up program, which a number of them are, keeping statistics, that's going to be me. I'm going to help them with their tournament schedules. And if your child is not in the Level Up program and is a level 1, 2, or kind of new to golf but showing skill, level 3 golfer, their mentor, so that will be Coach Luke, Coach Chris, Coach Brandon, or Coach Andrew, will sit down and go through their tournament schedules. But based on what they know, based on what you're learning, if everyone can formulate a list, and then that will happen mid to end of March. And hopefully that information that we feed back on that list will be helpful to you guys sort of making your final decisions.
Yeah, and if I could just add on that, when kind of like for those kids that are sort of the high school age and looking to really, looking at the AJGA events, I think it's helpful to think about, to kind of start saying like, all right, how many events do we want to play a month? And then from there, kind of identify some key events that might be like the biggest events of the season, and just kind of like jot that down on the calendar. And then you can kind of fill in the blanks between, like, let's say, one of the kids qualifies for the Mass Junior, which we normally have a handful of kids playing in each season. Prior to the Mass Junior, I would say it would be beneficial to have, one or two smaller events to help, prepare them for that event, but not, 3 or 4 right before the tournament, because, at that level, the kids want to be fresh, but they also want to be prepared. And like we said earlier, each kid's going to be different. Some kids would want to play more, but I would compare it to professional golf. There's 4 majors, and the best players will try to plan their schedule to get them ready for that. And that's something that's, I think, super important, is like learning how to peak their game and get prepared and do what they need to do to play at the highest level. And I think that sort of strategic as the kids continue to get older and more experienced.
Thanks, Chris. Any more questions?
Ian, for kids like mine that sort of like to punch above their weight, so to speak, to get that kind of experience and whatnot, but they're, closer to college than maybe some of the younger kids. How does it get viewed? He's very conscious of the perception. Like, if he doesn't play well, he's punching above his weight, but then he kind of gets knocked down a couple times along the ride. Like, how does that get perceived by coaches that are attending from a college perspective or whatnot? Or is it just that they enjoy that he's competing and that they look at the body of work and whatnot?
Is that Jason?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't see you on my sidebar. So, okay, yeah, it's a good question. Rich Brazu will be able to answer that probably better than me. So we have another Zoom next week that is to educate on college placement, same time. Actually, this one will be run on time because I'm not in Florida. I won't be subjected to some crazy slow play, but Rich could probably advise on that a little bit better. I could take it from a psychological standpoint. Yes, Brady is highly motivated. He shows great resilience in practice. I believe that he would thrive in adversity, and I believe it's fine for him to be put into tournaments where he's only going to be looking up, because I think he's someone that will adapt to the environment, and I think some controlled failure will fuel him. Not every student is like that, but I also wouldn't like to say to Brady, hey, no, you can't play in that, you're not good enough, because he might not. I think he'd go out and try and prove me wrong. So
that's true.
Again, but that's a great question, because it does really highlight the individuality of this. But I would also check with Rich. I can't imagine a bad score in an AJGA qualifier like ends your college dreams. It's just a little extreme to look at it that way. So that would be my opinion. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
You've been there, right? You've done it. So
yeah. So I was a college coach for 4 seasons, and the way I personally looked at it, like when I was evaluating a recruit, I really like to see the progression year to year. I wouldn't get too bogged down on specific events, but I was looking more so at trends and development. For instance, like if someone if a junior player was playing at a pretty high level at age 13 and was improving by half a stroke per year, and shooting good scores, versus a 16-year-old that was averaging 82, then 77, then 74, like that peak in improvement for me personally, and I know a lot of coaches that I have talked to, that's a big deal. Seeing the development, and also, I mean, I believe if a coach judges the kid off of one tournament, shame on them. Especially in this game, you know, so many things can happen. I know myself, I had some rounds where if I was judged off one round, I wouldn't have played college golf. So, yeah, I think like Ian said, from if the kid, if the player is going to go in with a growth mindset and saying like, I'm going to do the best I can, I'm going to grind it out and, you know, tally it up at the end, and that's their intent for the tournament, to gain experience, then absolutely. But yeah, that's something that like next week we can talk about with Rich. And the beauty of Rich is, I mean, I think he's around my age, so he's up there. But he played college golf. He was a college golf coach. He worked for the AJGA, and now he has his own consulting business. So he's really sat on every side of the table that there is, and has a great background. And I mean, I respect all of his opinions. I've known him for a few years, and he's very, very bright with all this. So I think some of these questions too, like we can save up and get his take on it as well.
Yes, Mark, I saw you raised your hand.
No, not this Mark anyway, unless there's another one.
Oh, okay. All
right.
So we also had a couple of questions in the chat. So as far as like determining where to look at for the tournaments, if anyone has any specific questions, like Gregory, whoever, feel free to reach out directly, and we can kind of lead you in the right direction as far as what tournaments to start looking at, in terms of like planning for the season. Like Ian said, if I'm their mentor, or you know, whoever is, that's what we're here for, and we can guide you guys in the right direction, and set the kids up for a nice path of success here.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll just give everyone, if you haven't got my number, please take it down. It's 352-978-8322. I'll put it in the chat as well. 3529. Can give me a call any time. And if I'm coaching, I'll get back to you. But I think it's now easier for me to take phone calls, because obviously we have this baseline of knowledge that we've laid out. We'll get the email out to you with my tournament schedule, with this guide. Again, if you tune in next week at this time, yes, it's about college placement, but we'll go into tournaments again. And then it just makes the phone calls a lot simpler. If I say like, hey, yeah, I think your child is a level 2, so we should, and the age they're at, we should definitely look at New England PGA with a little sprinkling of Hurricane. And I think that their burnout threshold is actually pretty high. So put them in a tournament or 2 a week, and just keep checking that they're not injured, and that they're hydrating, and that they're taking rest and still hanging out with their friends. It's really easy to give that more fluid advice. Now we're all sharing sort of a common baseline language and an understanding of the system. So hope this has been useful to anyone. Any more questions?
Out of curiosity, Ian, for those of us that work and it's somewhat hard to get kids out to courses in the middle of the day, and sometimes do you guys coordinate like carpooling, or can you drop them off at core and you guys take them? How's that at all?
That is somewhere I would like to get to. We don't currently do that now. I think like a parents WhatsApp group or a parents forum could be an amazing idea for carpooling. I will take some students to some tournaments and do practice rounds. And if I am going to watch, if it's on my schedule, I will offer to drive students there in the core van. But the number, we might have 5 different tournaments in 2 days, and I still have to be back at the academy coaching. So not always something that we can offer, but we will try and slowly introduce that this year. We'll see how it goes, and if we can find a way to do it, yes. But it's definitely not something that would happen on a regular basis. But let me bring that up let me see if I can think of any other ways that we can sort of be flexible with that. I'll try and figure something out where we can maybe try and be a little bit better there.
Yeah, and I think there definitely could be an opportunity. I think especially if there are families that live in, relatively like a similar area. I think that would probably, you're not the only one in that boat. So yeah, maybe we can try to think of something and try to link people up in
Yeah, I think that's the best. That would be the best way. Any more questions? I got 2 students here. Look, just whispering away because they don't want to interrupt. They've been so polite for the last hour. Okay, perfect. Well, a parents email group. Yeah. Okay,
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'll add that to my to-do list. I'll get you the information that you guys urgently want. So a copy of this PDF, a link to the tournaments I'm going to be attending. Those who still need more information, please text or phone me to arrange these follow-up calls. Please attend next week to hear Rich Brazeau speak, because I'm sure he'll add value to this. And then I think everything will be set for us to move forward and have a great spring and summer. Okay, thank you guys. Have a great evening. Really appreciate everyone attending. And you, Chris. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
All right. Good chat.
Okay, guys.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.